Good afternoon. It's Jane. I'm going to work a little bit on the crochet. It's got too hot to be outside. And done a little bit more on my cleaning. Cleaning up the little kitten fur balls. I call them kittens because they leave tufts of fur everywhere. So, needed to clean their kittens. Let's see where my stitch marker is. I'm about ready to come up to the end of this row, so I'm gonna just stick a stitch marker right there. Show my progress. Oh my. This world seems to be a little crazy, doesn't it? Seems like it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. The eye, I don't know, I do want to say it is better. I'm having less visual blockage. It's still there. I can still see that there are issues. And the only thing that's a little different today is the eye. It feels a little more grainy. And when I had called the doctor on call, because I was concerned about that, why would it feel so grainy? And he basically told me a lot of that is the things that are breaking up in the back. It's a good sign. Kind of like allergies. So there's more liquid in the eye. Tear ducts, those kind of things. And he said that is most likely what you're feeling and seeing as that's dissolving. He said that's a good thing. So, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something else. Because Lord knows if you go to the emergency room about it, they'd have you wait and call on Monday to talk with the doctor, and that's not happening. I am working on my afternoon water. It is so good. I was really surprised. It's grape with blood orange. And you do get the sweetness from the grape and that grape flavor. And then you get what comes up behind it is the tartness and the fullness of that blood orange. I hope I'm explaining that to where you can understand it. I like it. It's a little more on the tart. This morning's water was cotton candy and Skittles strawberry starfruit. Really sweet. And in that container, I probably had about 8 ounces left that I couldn't finish this morning. It was just too sweet. So this is going to help for this afternoon. And then when I get finished with this, I'll probably be perfectly okay to finish the rest of that before I head to bed. Now, when I go to bed, I always take a 20-ounce container that has ice and water in it, and generally sip on that while I'm doing some reading or playing some of the games I like to play on my iPad at night before I go to bed. And my scrolling through the TikTok at that point before I finally go to bed. So, but, and then I generally, because I have to ice my knees each night because of those stupid kneecaps that don't sit on the femur correctly. If I don't, I can't sleep the whole night through because I'll have pain that radiates down my leg and into the shin, and it's just really uncomfortable. So icing stops a lot of that. So I ice my knees while I'm doing all that. Then I get up and I go put the ice packs back into the freezer and fill up on the water. Sometimes I drink more water than others and bring that water to bedside. And then I have that there for during the night if I wake up and I'm thirsty. Because having that CPAP, sometimes my mouth is really dry and it wakes me up. Well, because I've drunk so much water, got to get up and go pee too, so there's that. But, yeah, the eyesight's getting a little bit better. I'm sleeping with the head elevated like they wanted. So I do see some improvement. Of course, it's not fast enough. You know, I want it to be faster. It's not going to be that much faster. But doesn't mean I won't keep asking the Lord to make it go faster. So, I had planned on coming back yesterday evening and just sitting and crocheting, staying at home. But I chose to go back out to the Lamar campground. This week is their, what they call family camp week. And it's where there are a lot of activities for adults, kids, those kind of things that are arranged basically around sort of like a Bible study, a vacation Bible study thing. And a lot of worship, you know, praise band, that kind of thing comes. And it's just interesting. And the gentleman that was speaking is Stan Keys. I want to say he's out of Ohio. He does have a website. He's written a couple of books. And he was basically talking about the gospel, pure and simple. But this was his last night to lead the sermon. So it was just nice to get a closure for the whole week. And just very nice. And of course, I was a little bit worried because wasn't sure how the eye was going to react as it got a little darker towards dusk, that kind of thing. Did okay. Didn't have any more problems than I do during daylight hours. So that made me feel a whole lot better about the situation because I was worried about it. Really was worried about it. And some of the things that I've been looking at, because I have an Awana event. I call it an event. We're having a was it bring a dish, potluck? It's not really potluck because we do know what the main meal is. The gentleman that's hosting it at his home is doing a brisket, and I believe he said pork loin. So that's the main thing, and you can bring along a side or a dessert or something like that. Well, I've been on this mission because I have quite a bit of pancake mix. Now, the pancake mix is good till, I want to say March or May of next year. But, you know, normally I don't go through a box of pancake mix by myself. I mean, I could use that for a whole year. So I did find a couple of recipes where you could actually make a mug pancake, sort of, you know, a mug cake pancake. So I will be using it up that way because that way I don't have to make a mix of it and then have to stand there and make tons of pancakes or waffles. And of course, waffles, the batter needs to be a little thicker than pancakes, so. And I have made waffles and pancakes and, a big batch of them and then let them cool completely and put them in baggies to freeze them. Freeze them on a flat cookie sheet and then put them into bags, freezer bags, so I can just pull them out when I, want a quick breakfast or something like that. But I was looking for some different ideas. And I came across a couple that I was like, really? I would have never thought. Pizza, deep dish pizza using pancake mix. I don't think they are intending on you using buttermilk pancake, but who knows, it might be okay. I would try it in a small amount. I think a lot of these recipes are geared for Bisquick, which is a little bit different than pancake mix. But I did find a couple that were definitely pancake mix. I'll try to remember. I don't know if I copied the links on all those or not. Let me see. I don't think I did. But like they have moist pancake bread recipe. That might be interesting, right? And of course, with that one, you can add a lot of add-ins to it. Anything from savory to sweet. The pancake in a mug breakfast hack. And this one uses Bisquick or any pancake mix. You put in 1/3 cup of your pancake mix, 3 tablespoons of either almond milk or milk, whatever. And you can add in blueberries, banana, nuts, lemon zest, cinnamon, chocolate chips, whatever. You could add toppings to it if you wanted, all kinds of things. So you just mix that with your milk and put it in a microwave safe mug or ramekin, whatever. And then you cook it at 90 seconds. I don't know, that just sounds kind of yummy. Fruit pizza pancake. That one I have seen a lot. Mini dish pancakes. Easy tostada pizza. And basically you're going to use your pancake mix with yellow corn mix. Of course, applesauce muffins. You can make naan bread with pancake mix. Now this one uses tofu, but I think someone had suggested using, instead of tofu, either Greek yogurt or an egg, something like that, to make the naan. And of course you can make a pancake loaf. So with a crumb topping or turn it into a coffee cake type thing. So I'm thinking about making that for a side to take for a dessert. I don't know if a lot of people bring a bunch of desserts and maybe meat and desserts. Who knows? Thought about making a pasta salad. But I don't really want to make one that has any kind of dairy in it. Just because tomorrow is supposed to be kind of hot anyway. So I was trying to avoid that. So I don't know. Trying to decide. Just, looking for something different and ways to use up that pancake mix besides doing the normal pancakes or waffles. Like I said, I think I'm also going to try that pancake loaf bread. Maybe interesting. Maybe something that's just horrible. But of course, that wouldn't be too bad if you toasted it for breakfast. Who knows, right? I do think things that are going on in our world today are kind of crazy. I had heard this story last night, and well, let me preface it by this. Yesterday in Pennsylvania, out in Gettysburg, the doll Annabelle was delivered to be put on display for a little while. And some of you who know about Annabelle will understand. But as soon as she was taken off the truck, Pennsylvania got a statewide alert that the 911 system was down. And it was down statewide. And so it also listed your local areas, wherever you were at, for if you needed assistance, 911, you may or may not get through because of the system outage. And so they were telling you to call the non-emergency number just in case, which I will tell you in the past, Thomas and I have used the non-emergency number when there are students that are acting like idiots and just making a lot of noise, having a party. We don't consider that an emergency. We didn't. So we would call the non-emergency number. They generally sent someone out within probably about 15 minutes, to check on it and break it up, which is basically what we wanted. And lots of times, if you just had a police officer drive by, it would break up those kind of parties. Anyway, if they just go by or maybe stop, roll down their windows, it's like turning on the lights and the cockroaches run. So that kind of thing happened. And then I'd come across this video someone had sent me about that there were like people just dropping like flies in Baltimore, Maryland. And at first he said, I don't know if they died or what. Well, they didn't. Some of them, there were a couple, I think there were 3 that did die. But there were 25 that were hospitalized. So I went looking for that to find out what that was about. And apparently it's some kind of overdose. Either the dealer, when he was selling those drugs to these people, either he added something extra to cause the overdose or didn't thin it out enough. And people, when you're buying drugs that you snort and shoot up, you have no idea what they're adding to it to make it go farther. So, but anyway, it's being classified as a drug overdose. So, thought that was interesting. And of course, that was on North Penn Street in Baltimore, or what they call Pennsylvania Avenue. So, some of us are going, oh, that's a bit of a coinky-dink, don't you think? So, thought that was interesting. I had someone also send me the story. And this is a friend who leans very left, and I mean very left, trying to say that ICE had pushed this fellow off of a 30-story building. I mean, there were all kinds of things. Well, it wasn't quite what happened. When they had done one of the raids on the cannabis farms, this gentleman, he wasn't being chased by ICE. However, he chose to climb up to the top of the greenhouse. It was 30 feet, and he fell off. When ICE came upon him, the first thing that they did was that they assisted him made sure that he was still alive, and then also called for medical transportation. It's emergency. Well, if you listen to the story that's put out there by the media, you wouldn't know anything of that. You would be informed what the United Farm Workers Association, I'm going to call it that loosely, what they put out there was that he was being chased, and they don't know whether an ICE officer had pushed him off the building or if he fell because he tripped or he jumped. But that the family said that the family, when they had contacted the family, had said he was in intensive care with a broken, fractured skull and a broken neck. Well, if you fall or jump off a 30-foot building, consequences. Sometimes it's broken legs, sometimes it's more severe. Sometimes you survive, sometimes you don't. But I'm just curious why he chose to climb the building and run if they weren't chasing him. Now, during these raids of the 2 cannabis farms, and this is what ticks me off about the media, they don't tell you the whole story. They give you these bits and pieces, making you think that it's some horrible thing that happened. Well, they had valid evidence, concrete evidence, that both of these cannabis farms had undocumented workers in the fields. But they also knew that some of those were children. And what they discovered is 10 of those were children. 9 of them were unaccompanied minors who were, you guessed it, slave labor. They've been trafficked into slave labor. Because if you don't know, when the cartel or the coyotes bring you across into the U.S., you have to pay them back. Generally, it's anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. And the way you do that is you work it off. And I told you about the woman, and I knew her and I talked with her about this because I was curious. I asked questions. She said that she had to go to church, she had to pay her tithe, which was half of her paycheck. And I had said to her, why is the church making you pay half of your paycheck as a tithe? Tithe is usually only 10%. And she kind of beat around the bush, and then a few minutes later, she told me that when they brought her across the border, the coyotes, she had to pay them back for the cost of bringing her to the U.S. So she had to pay half her paycheck every time she got paid. Okay, I understand that now. Is that a problem? Because she just had a baby as well. And I'd said to her, is that a problem? Does that make it harder for you to make ends meet? Those kind of things. And she said no, because she, her husband, and her baby, they live with 4 other couples in a home that they're renting. So they make it work. I said, okay. Just curious. So it happens. But here's the thing. What the media is leaving out, of those 325,000 children that went missing, that were undocumented people came into the U.S. under Biden. Those 10 kids were listed on that. All 10 of them were on that list. And I see some of the nonsense that they're posting. We have media saying that ICE agents went in raiding and shooting tear gas and bullets, rubber bullets, and projectiles and all kinds of things. Well, that didn't happen until the protesters showed up. And protesters were throwing rocks, bottles, you name it, all kinds of things. And this is a tactic that they used to break up the crowds. And of course, on top of that, you have the idiot that had the gun that was shooting at them. Quite frankly, I hope they do catch him. Because, you know, if you do stupid stuff, there's consequences for it. So, and I do find it interesting that the left is so worried about who's going to pick their food, who's going to clean their house. That tells me the level of value you place on these people. Their slavery, their indentured slavery, is more important to you than the safety of your homes. Some of these people do work under cover of darkness, as you say. They're here and they're putting on a face that they're here to work to better their lives, or to better the lives of their families. However, it's been proven that many of these are not only sending money back to their home country, which, you know, we now tax because of that. You know, they're free to do what they want with the money that they're making. Granted, have no problem with that. Problem I have with it is if they are using someone else's identity, social security numbers, stolen identities, those kind of things in order to do it. I've told you about when I had gone online to create an account with Social Security. Came back that my number was associated with a woman who was living in Maryland, Baltimore to be exact, that had just recently bought a new car, had recently within the past 2 years bought a home in Baltimore. Well, I've done none of that, you know, and I have had teased for years, boy, I hope she's really paying into my Social Security account. So when I start collecting it, you know, it's more than what it would have been with just the money that I put into it. So yes, we did. When I became eligible for Social Security due to Thomas's death, I did go to find out what that was about, and it was determined that this was someone who was illegally using my information. And it was information that they had purchased off the dark web. When it all came about and, you know, discovery and all that kind of stuff, they'd purchased this information off the dark web. And initially, that was people who operate in the dark web, and they purchased items from DMVs. That's how they got the information. So I was not a happy camper. And the only way they got that information is because I do know my DMV sells our names, lists, and all that kind of stuff. Now, do I think they should include Social Security numbers? No, I don't. but they do. And there's no way for me to opt out. So that, that annoys me. I think it should be mandated that we have the option to opt out of having our information sold. I mean, why should the state make money off of our name, our information, when we have to pay to get a license? It irks me to no end. It just really does. But it's part of that system. Know what I mean, Fred? So yeah, when you go to find out some of the real stories and find the full story, you find out that it's not quite what I'll call now the legacy, what I've always called mainstream media, that they're following through with. And I'll be honest, I am glad that there are a lot of people on social media that are calling out these people that I don't know if they're doing it to race bait or possibly to make themselves go viral. Who knows? I mean, there was one that's, I think his name is Pastor Scott 42 or 46, something like that. Basically, he had going off the Sadie Perkins thing with the hate about Camp Mystic. He was putting up these t-shirts, that were like Camp Mystic, learn to swim. Camp Mystic, was it drowning 90% or some stupid nonsense like that. But a lot of the social media influencers have been reporting these left and right. And so a lot of them are getting their channels banned. I don't know that he got his banned. He did change it to private. But are you really going to sell your soul for maybe $9 because of views? $9 or $10? I mean, it's kind of sick if you ask me. And of course, there's a couple others that have been, getting on that bandwagon. And quite honestly, I think, like with what Sadie Perkins was doing, when you are doing that, you're constantly saying that things are racist and, they deserve to die, this kind of thing. You show your hate for your fellow human beings. Okay? We only have one race, and that's the human race. And it's sad that a lot of people continue to perpetuate this big divide and almost create a bigger divide with their divisiveness. And that's sad. Just find it sad. And I think these people need some help, to be honest. You carry that much hate in your heart for other people, just sad. So, those are some of the things that just bother me to no end about people, And of course, this week, a lot of things are going around there are talking about the word, a lot of people have adopted MAGA as I'm MAGA on that team, Make America Great Again. they've pointed out that that word throughout history, and it's not capital M, capital A, capital G, capital A, it's just magus. Has meant evil, all kinds of things like that. You're seeing that go around. Yeah, so what? That is not what that word means. But the original word for magus in Greek and Latin and those kind of things did point towards evil, those different things like that, like maggots. But you use the term wrongly to identify people. There's a lot of words that we use to identify people that if we really looked at the meaning, they are very different. But I don't know, just find it interesting. The things that the left will do and continue to perpetuate the lies they think that are benefiting their party. I think I saw someone say that the Democrat Party has come out with the 2029 and a half plan. You know, I haven't seen it, looked at it, kind of curious what that is. But I do know that there are people that, when they do these surveys, and this is a survey in their own party, the Democrat Party, 16% approve. And that's the lowest they have ever had. So they really need to look at themselves and determine, are they going to work for America? Or are they going to work for all these other nations? Because people are tired. They're tired of being taken advantage of. They're tired of being constantly berated with you're this, you're that, all this nonsense when they're not. So yeah, find that sad. There is good news though. June, we had a budget, what they call them, surplus this time. The first since 2017, $27 billion, which kind of throws that nonsense that you have all these economists that were saying the tariffs were going to cause a $47 trillion deficit or, you know, all this nonsense. Well, it didn't do that. It generated income. So, first since 2017, yes, that's a good thing, right? There are some positive things. And I think the biggest thing that I find positive is we see President Trump going out there, even though there's so much criticism, continuing to work to try to take care of Americans, put them first and not on the back burner for the first time in many years, which is a good thing. Honestly is. And I do find some of this nonsense with all the, you know, the outcry about the big budget bill. Many of those things do not go into effect until 2026 or even to 2028. And some of those things, I mean, are normal in any bill. They've been normal in even Democrats' bills about cutting fraud and waste in all of these programs. We have so many people saying, well, that doesn't happen with food stamps, SNAP benefits, all that nonsense. And then you read the news where someone was just convicted $50,000 worth of fraud around SNAP, around food stamps. Or you find was it 2 or 3 people that were found to have stolen, was it $300 million from SNAP. So there is fraud, there is abuse, and there is waste. So, and I will tell you, I have seen people and I used to see it all the time in New Mexico. People would sell their food stamps. And they were selling their food stamps so they could buy beer or cigarettes, things like that. So I did see that. And, there's a part of me that goes, well, if the people buying those food stamps would actually, say they're selling $25 worth of food stamps, they would actually give them $25. I'd have no problem with that. But generally what those people wanted to do was, maybe give them $20 for $25. They knew they were desperate. That was wrong too. Those people are just as guilty of food stamp fraud, if you ask me. Of course, that was back when you got the, the little booklet that had the $10, $5, $1. Supposed, the conscript, the script, not conscript, the script that you could use to buy your food with. So there was no way of really tracking it down. Of course, I'm not real sure how they do that with the EBT cards now, but apparently they're still able to do it, because I see many times that there's a warning that comes with EBT cards about the fraud, scams. And I'm like, really? These must be technological wizards that are able to do that. So yeah, it happens. My allergies are acting up again today. So that's kind of driving me nuts. The ears are hurting and nose is running. But it's allergy season. Not a whole lot I can do about it. The mullein that is growing out in the yard and around the side there, it's not ready to be harvested, and I'm hoping that it survives. We're supposed to be getting, I think, rain either tonight or tomorrow night. And sometimes that'll knock the mullein down or knock it over. And you can't really harvest it well. Which, once you harvest it, you can use it for a lot of things. It's really good for a lot of congestion. There are a lot of different things you can use it for. Turn it into a tea. Helps with your congestion, your breathing, those kind of things. So I was kind of hoping to be able to harvest some of that and dry it out and set it aside for cold season. Because we all know that's coming. It always does every year. And of course, being around Awana, those walking germs. And boy, do kids carry a lot, but oh well. So what are you working on today? I've been trying to catch up on quite a few people. And not necessarily successful. But I am getting caught up on a few people that I normally watch. Don't always get to see. I'd gone back to look for some videos by Zelda that I was like, I haven't seen any of her videos come across my feed lately. So I went back to look, and of course, YouTube had unsubscribed me, so I wasn't getting notifications, so I went and, resubscribe. We have to do that every once in a while because I don't know if that's something that happens when they do updates, or maybe they think you have too many subscriptions, so they start picking them off one by one. Who knows? I wish there was somebody you could call at YouTube to ask them about that. So far, I haven't found anybody. But it would be interesting to see what the story is behind that. I've seen a lot of people having all kinds of worries about some of the upcoming changes for YouTube. It's YouTube. And this mostly affects creators. A lot of these are creators that do faceless YouTube channels or use AI. And a lot of that has to do with they now want you to identify if you are using AI in your videos, which I don't think that's a bad thing. I'll tell you why I don't think that's a bad thing. My friend who leans very left often posts things that are AI generated that make it look like people are saying things that aren't true as if they are true. So, and I've kind of pointed it out to her, you really need to see if it's AI generated or not. Just do a quick search. It's 30 seconds to find out if that's true or not, instead of just posting blindly. I mean, there are things that get past me because I didn't bother to really check it out, but try to check everything out before I post it. But, yeah, it's just crazy. AI has gotten kind of out of hand. I mean, there are people even going to the extreme of posting these things as if they were that person using a different account and saying things that they would never say. So be careful when you see those kind of things. Be careful. Some of them are just, you can see the big difference because it's slow. The wording is off. The mouth is off. Timing is off. They look like they're standing in front of green screen, and there's a line around them. So just be careful, folks, and what you're watching and what you believe right off the bat. And as always, do a little bit of research. It's 30 seconds. Generally, you can find the answer within that 30 seconds, to determine. And it's like, on Facebook, there are a ton of accounts that say, oh, so-and-so died, tragic accident, this actor, whatever. The link is in the comments. Those may be stories of years ago or whatever. They try to make it like it's an actress this year. The biggest things that I've seen that I think is the funniest is the one where it shows Elon Musk with a face mask, getting oxygen by a face mask. He looks all gray and like he's old and dying and, that kind of stuff. A lot of that is just nonsense. So be careful. Check your sources. Well, folks, I think it's time for me to get back to what I was doing originally. To have the other half of the house to finish cleaning. I have to clean a kitty pan. So I am going to let you go for now. And I will check back with you on another day. Everybody have a great day, great weekend, and stay hydrated. I know it's hot here. I hope it's not as hot where you're at. And be safe. See you again soon. Bye.